they've got this one-sided individual that's having a one-sided or positive life, and they've got their own depression, which is a one-sided negative. And so they're separated in their mind. One's all good, one's all bad. When you go and find, what's all the drawbacks to the thing that I'm infatuated with and is a fantasy, and what are actually the unconscious benefits of mine, then you're taking one off the pedestal, you're taking one out of the pit, you're seeing both sides of both aspects. And to bring it back to your question is, well, what does it feel like once you go through it? Well, you no longer have this thing that you're comparing your life to. You're integrated the two. You found the upside and the downside of both of them. And so now, as you're going through your life, instead of having this aspect of working towards something in the future, and you're comparing yourself to it, you're just present with what you're doing now, because you've dissolved the illusion, the fantasy of this is better, my life is better when I have this, because you've gone and found both sides to it. And so it's kind of like for someone that has gone through the experience of doing this work, it's a liberation of I'm no longer kind of constantly in my head comparing, or I'm constantly in my carrying around the grief in my head. You're kind of liberating that emotional kind of feeling, and you've just got a kind of a freedom. You're going to go into your next thing. Everyone's kind of got their next illusion that they're going through, their next judgment, whatever it is. But once you have that experience, you have an open-hearted experience, you have an unconditioned state for something. If someone then asked you if you could change your life and not go through that depression, not go through that grief, would you do that? If they've completed it, they say, no, there's nothing to change, because they have an understanding, they have an awareness of why they went through it. If they say, oh, look, I would have changed this part of it, then it tells me that they think that their will and what they think it should be is greater than God's will or the universe's will, or divine will. And so they're still in a state of my will is better than God or universe. But when they get to the point where they have a full understanding, they see the bigger picture of the situation, they realize there's nothing to change, then their will, their understanding is aligned with the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. They realize there's no mistake. They realize there's nothing to change. And then they're no longer influenced by that thing. If that thing comes along, that event happens, someone reminds you, it's just an event for them. It's no longer something that's running their life and they're wanting to avoid, kind of thing.
So again, I love the mathematical aspect of this and the evening out, as you said, the fantasy versus the depression. Is it implicit in that and this is something you hear from some different philosophers and ancient wisdom, that back to that net neutral point, if everything is ultimately, when you think of it in that way, somewhat neutral, and that's what allows you that liberation, because whether it be God's will or whatever spiritual belief you have that created it, there's no mistakes, right? Everything happens for the reason that it's supposed to happen. What impact does that have on motivation and ambition and drive for things? Because what I always think about when I hear that type of philosophy is like, well, then what is my motivation to get a better job, right? If the job I have right now, I'm not happy at it, this kind of logic or this approach would say, well, no. Actually, there's good and bad to it, and you should be fine. And if you got another job that you thought was better, you're just not being honest with yourself, right? There's negatives to that job, and everything ends up evening out. So what's my motivation? What's my drive towards anything in life? Like, right? What makes me want that? Does it imply that like the mindset should be, no matter what it is, everything's fine? Like, I don't need anything in life. Anything that I desire or think that I want is just that illusion, and it's not real. I shouldn't actually desire or want anything. Does it go that far?